The baby comes home, and something in your dog shifts. Not dramatically, not with barking or aggression or any of the things you were warned about. Just a shift, a stillness, a new kind of attention directed at this small, loud, unpredictable creature that has appeared in the center of their world. And most new parents notice it, but can't quite explain it. The dog who used to follow them everywhere now follows the baby. The dog who slept in the bedroom now sleeps outside the nursery. The dog who never showed much interest in the floor suddenly lies beside the baby's playmat for hours. What is happening inside a dog's brain when a baby enters the house? The answer involves some of the most sophisticated social cognition researchers have ever documented in a non-human species, and it changes how you understand what your dog actually is. Let's start with the first thing that happens, which begins before the baby even arrives. Dogs read environments with a precision that most humans underestimate. When furniture moves, when a new room is prepared, when unfamiliar objects appear and stay, cribs, changing tables, bouncy chairs, the dog is building a map, cataloging, updating their model of the territory and what these changes mean for the social structure they live inside. And then the smells change, because pregnancy changes the hormonal chemistry of a household in ways that are imperceptible to human noses, but completely legible to a dog's. The elevated progesterone, the shifts in cortisol, the changes in a pregnant person's sweat and breath. Your dog has been tracking all of it for months. They knew something was changing before you told anyone. Then the baby arrives, and the dog encounters something it has never encountered before. A human, but not quite. Smaller than any human they've met, louder in ways that don't follow the patterns of adult speech, moving unpredictably, smelling completely different, a combination of milk, skin, amniotic traces, and a specific newborn chemical signature that researchers have begun to study in earnest.
And here is what the science shows happens next. Dogs don't treat babies like small adults. They don't treat them like other dogs either. They appear to recognize babies as a distinct category, humans who require a different kind of attention and a different behavioral response. A 2012 study published in Animal Cognition found that dogs responded differently to infant crying than to adult distress vocalizations, showing more submissive and empathetic behaviors specifically in response to the baby sounds. The response wasn't fear. It wasn't aggression. It was something closer to concerned attentiveness. The dog was reading the baby the way it reads everything, as a social signal to be interpreted and responded to appropriately. But here's where it gets more complex. Because the baby doesn't just change the dog's relationship to the baby, it changes the dog's relationship to everything. Researchers studying family dynamics after a new baby arrives have documented a consistent pattern in dogs, a period of behavioral adjustment that mirrors, in striking ways, what human siblings go through. Increased proximity seeking toward the primary caregiver. Heightened sensitivity to changes in routine. Occasional attention-seeking behaviors that weren't present before. The dog is recalibrating. The social structure it understood has been reorganized, and it is working out its new place within it. And most dogs, given time and appropriate handling, do something remarkable. They don't just accept the baby. They extend the attachment system, the same neurological architecture that bonds them to their human owners, to include this new small being. Dr. Lisa Lundy at the University of Florida studied interactions between dogs and infants over the first year of life and found that by 6 months, most family dogs had established consistent proximity patterns with the baby that closely resembled their proximity patterns with their primary owner. They were sleeping near the baby, orienting toward the baby when they cried, checking on the baby when it was out of sight. The dog had, in the language of attachment research, adopted the baby into its social group.
Now, here's the part that most parenting advice gets completely wrong. The most common concern new parents have is aggression. Will the dog hurt the baby? And this concern, while understandable, focuses on the wrong variable entirely. Dogs who show aggression toward babies are almost never doing so because of the baby. They are doing so because of fear, because of sudden changes in routine that have destabilized their sense of safety, because of reduced attention from their primary attachment figure, you, at exactly the moment their stress system most needs regulation. The research is consistent on this point. A dog that feels secure, whose routine has been maintained as much as possible, whose bond with its owner has not been suddenly severed by the arrival of a new priority, that dog is not a danger. It is a resource. Because what dogs do with babies when the introduction is handled well is something no parenting book adequately describes. They watch, constantly and carefully. They position themselves between the baby and perceived threats. They alert to sounds from the nursery before the baby monitor does. They lie close during the baby's naps with a quality of attention that is, by any reasonable measure, protective. This is not trained behavior. This is the expression of an instinct that runs deeper than training, the instinct to protect the vulnerable members of the pack. And the baby, for its part, benefits in ways that research is only beginning to quantify. A 2017 study published in Microbiome found that infants living with dogs had significantly different gut microbiome compositions than infants without dogs. Specifically, higher levels of two bacteria associated with reduced rates of childhood obesity and allergy. The dog wasn't just emotionally present, its physical presence was shaping the baby's developing immune system. A separate body of research has found that children who grow up with dogs show measurably lower cortisol responses to stressful situations, develop empathy earlier, and are more likely to show pro-social behavior toward other children. The dog in the house is not just a pet managing a transition. It is, in the most biological sense of the word, part of the child's developmental environment. There is one last thing worth saying. Somewhere in the second or third year, when the baby becomes a toddler and starts moving on their own and grabbing and pulling and falling, the dog does something that researchers find almost universally remarkable. It tolerates. With a patience and a gentleness that exceeds what most adult humans can sustain, the family dog absorbs the chaos of early childhood. It moves away from grabbing hands instead of snapping. It repositions when sat on. It endures indignities with a steadiness that looks, in the behavioral literature, unmistakably like affection. The baby who came home to a dog that didn't know what to make of it ends up, a few years later, with something irreplaceable. A friend who was there from the very beginning, who learned to read them before they could speak, who chose them the way they choose everyone they love, not because they had to, but because something in their nervous system decided, quietly and completely, that this small, loud, unpredictable human was worth protecting. If this changed how you see the relationship between your dog and your child, subscribe to this channel and leave a comment below. And the next video goes into something that surprises almost everyone. What happens inside a dog's brain when they sense that you're sad? The science of canine empathy is stranger and more moving than anything you'd expect.